Well, we're delighted to be here from the University of Missouri to present our work in storytelling in data and digital media. And we're really here to share our ideas, to spark debate, and we hope to initiate some collaborations with the University of Kansas. So, digital storytelling combines ancient practices of narrative with computer-based technologies in a variety of media, including images, text, audio, animation, and networked communication. Data storytelling uses these new techniques and tools to sort through massive amounts of data and to communicate findings to different audiences. So digital storytelling and data storytelling are increasingly recognized as crucial to the communication of messages in the era of big data and networked global culture. So in this panel, faculty and students from Mizzou's new Digital Storytelling BA degree program and our Information Science and Learning Technologies School are going to apply digital and data storytelling approaches to different domains, focusing on research projects and curricular innovations. So we'd like to highlight issues of theory and practice with an emphasis on questions relating to democratizing digital humanities practices, communicating knowledges and research, and emphasizing unrepresented languages, places, and people. So our format is that each of us will speak for a couple of minutes to describe their work, and then that will leave about 20 minutes, we hope, for questions and discussion. So our comments are going to be very brief. And with that, I'll turn it over to Joanna Hearne.
Can you hear me? So I'm Joanna Hearne. I'm in the English department and the School of Visual Studies, and I sort of directed the development of the Digital Storytelling BA program over the last 3 years. We've been a program for 2 years. In that time, we've gone from 0 to 151 declared majors, so it's been a really phenomenal growth curve. And I can talk about the mechanics and the numbers and things like that in Q&A, but I just want to talk a little bit about our vision for the program and how we understood what we were doing. So about 2 years ago, a prospective student and her mother were sitting in my office, and I told them we had this new major called digital storytelling. And first the student was just incredulous, and then she was totally thrilled. She said, "You can major in that?" And her mother had a different response completely. She said, "What is digital storytelling?" And I thought that was a good question. So as we invented the program at Mizzou, we interpreted digital storytelling very, very broadly as any intersection of narrative and digital media. But the term digital storytelling, we understand, has been around for a while, right? The earliest model we found, it's been mentioned here, for digital storytelling was pioneered by the Center for Digital Storytelling in Berkeley, California in the 1990s. It's now called Story Center. Story Center, as many of you know, teaches students to produce short personal stories about their life experience. They combine still images with music to create stories that value, and I'm quoting from Joe Lambert, self-expression over concerns of publication and audience. So this is non-professional media production. The Rockefeller Foundation focuses on digital storytelling as a way of reaching a target audience, influencing leaders, funders, and decision makers. Better messaging for nonprofits involves organizational storytelling, professionally produced, and intensely focused on how stories can affect behavior for the ultimate purpose of social good. A third definition comes from the intersection with for-profit businesses, and we had a lot of conversation with Hallmark as we were forming the program, where digital storytelling is associated with entertainment, marketing, and advertising, digital products that, and I'm quoting from a Hallmark representative, give consumers new ways to share ideas and feelings and experience content more fully. Beyond these approaches, workshop-based life stories, nonprofit organizational messaging for social change, and commercial branding, at the heart of the new discipline, as we understood it, is this. What undergraduate students most need is not to be told what digital storytelling is. What they most need are questions, choices, skills, and support for visionary story work in a digital world. They need to know what a story is, why stories are important, how to tell their own stories, how to care for and tell other people's stories, how to tell stories for a particular audience, how to distribute stories in different ways. They need to learn the audiovisual production skills to tell those stories in 21st century formats, and they need to know how those different formats change the story they're telling. They need to learn about digital aesthetics and theories of new media. They need to learn how to bring their personal visions to fruition and how to work in teams to realize a collective vision. They need to learn how to make a living, which means learning when it is appropriate to make money from stories and when it is not. They need to know how to read or make sense of the digital stories all around them, what we call media literacy. And they need to know how digital platforms work to reach audiences. So a university, as we understood it, offering an undergraduate degree in digital storytelling must think differently from any other organization or community or industry or nonprofit foundation or business. Our students need to learn not one or two ways of thinking about digital storytelling, but all of them. Thank you. This is Katina Bitsicas.
I don't know if we should clap. Hi, my name is Katina Bitsicas, and I'm the interim director while Joanna is on leave this year. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the media production curriculum. And so as Joanna mentioned, and what you'll hear from Nick later, is our curriculum has these multiple components, but the production is just one specific part of that. But we have this sort of interesting track of courses that are laid out for our students. And so the students in our courses become very agile with this technology, and they learn everything in skills from photography to videography to storyboarding to screenwriting, and then to animation, which you heard Joseph Erb speak about this morning, to audio production. And we offer actually specific courses in each of those elements, as well as a sort of introductory course. And in that introductory course, the students actually learn a little bit of each of those skills, along with actually how to the ethics behind storytelling, in addition to other sort of theoretical approaches to storytelling, and then a little bit of taste of each of those production elements. And so we are building on previous technological skills, but we also want to introduce these new conceptual frameworks. So we don't want to limit our students to one specific area of production. We don't want to say, okay, everybody has to do narrative, right? We kind of want to have them have a taste of each of the different types. So everything from, we even teach a course in documentary, to narrative filmmaking, experimental film, to promotional videos. So if they want to make, those short 2 to 3 minute YouTube style videos for companies, to video installation art. So it's really broad, like what we actually teach them. As long as they're, learning, we always talk about learning those tools that go in their toolkit, and then they're able to then apply them for whatever sort of position or graduate program they want to do after they graduate from our program. So I guess some examples too of maybe what our students go on to do after learning all these skills. We have some students who are interested in working with VR. We have some who are interested in more nonprofit sort of institutions and making both either their blogging or also those short promotional videos for that as well. We also have students who are traditional or who are interested in more traditional graduate school path to complete their production education as well. And so also I want to say that after they take this sort of series of courses, it all accumulates in this capstone sort of experience. And in this capstone experience, this is where we pool all the students, no matter if they came from animation, from narrative film, from documentary, they're all taking this course together. And then they're actually really learning from each other as well at that point, because they work on just sort of these 2 larger projects. In addition to that, they do a client film, so they actually have real world experience working for an actual marketing institution, right? And making work for them, listening to them, getting feedback from them. So it's a really great professional development experience for the students. And then also what we're piloting this year is also this experiential trip in New York City, where they'll get to meet with industry professionals and actually shoot on location with industry professionals and actually make these short films with them. And in addition to that, visit museums and galleries and so forth. And so also I want to talk about too, then they also are able to create this website portfolio and create all their professional documents like their CV, resume, and all of that. And in addition to that, sort of the sequence that we lined up for them. They don't just take the production courses, but like I said, there's also a separate area where they have to take a certain number of writing courses and also theoretical courses in addition to that. So, and it's really broad what they can take and choose from. So where they're sort of pulling from all these different departments and they're able to supplement their education with whatever path they sort of choose. So it's this sort of almost like liberal arts mentality of where they're designing their own curriculum to help them further that education. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. And
he can talk on the more the writing side. This is Nick Potter, and he teaches the Writing and Theory for Digital Media course.
awesome, thank you, Katina. So I'm going to stick to the script so I can try and keep us all on time. So I teach in the digital storytelling program. I teach a course titled Writing and Theory for Digital Media, which is a writing intensive course that is required for our digital storytelling majors. And one of the goals of the course is to provide students with a theoretical background for examining new media as both users and producers, with a particular emphasis in my class on the position of writing in the practice of digital storytelling. So in the course, we accomplish this goal in a couple of ways. The first involves developing skills for media-specific analysis by utilizing strategies and assignments common to the humanities. This includes formal analysis and an argumentative research paper. The second strategy, and the one I'd like to emphasize this afternoon, is project-based. So in addition to critical writing, students in my course write their own stories, which they are then asked to adapt into various digital forms. Through the process of adaptation, we consider the ways their stories must mutate and transform in order to meet the formal demands of the medium to which their stories are being adapted. In practice, I ask students to consider adaptation as a form of radical revision, and to consider how the constraints and possibilities of a new medium can create opportunities for rethinking the narratives they've created. Among the various forms their stories take, I require students to adapt their narratives into text-based video games or hypertext narratives, utilizing an open source software called Twine. And up here you'll see a couple of screenshots, particularly this one in blue, and then over here in all white here is some of the code that they utilize in that Twine. So Twine is a user-friendly platform that has generated award-winning text-based video games like Zoe Quinn's Depression Quest and Lydia Neon's Player 2. And in addition to being a powerful tool for creating interactive and multi-linear narratives, Twine is also a terrific way for introducing students to that essential category of digital language, code. In Twine, students must use the platform's simplified code in order to generate the algorithms and pathways that make their stories tick, and can further customize their games using CSS and JavaScript. And so at the outset, Twine uses a simplified form of its own code, which you'll see portions of here that is relatable to HTML, but is very simple as an introduction. And then through engaging with this platform, they can utilize and really understand what it means to try to work with code as a layperson in really developing and troubleshooting through various online sources, videos, and what have you, in order to create works of their own that are customized and unique to their stories. So in this way, students develop their understanding of digital narratives by writing in the language that makes digital storytelling digital storytelling. Thank you. And I'll turn the time over to Jenny.
Okay, so I'm in the School of Information Science and Learning Technologies, and I'm talking about something completely different, just so you know.
So transition.
Yeah, transition here. A few years ago, I had this idea about creating an oral history and mixed media project about the most important and special objects that people have in their lives, and it was going to be called Objects of Love and Death. It had a great name. But then I was thinking it would be really cool to have refugees, which has been done since then, bring in their favorite, the things that they brought with them, if they brought like one or two things from the old world or wherever they had to come from. So anyway, I was really interested in looking at the metadata, or creating metadata for the project, and seeing patterns that might reveal, and migration patterns, and things like that, and also about the words that people use to describe their objects. And so what kinds of patterns could you see in the language? So I ended up shopping the idea around a little bit and ended up working with the Missouri Humanities Council on a completely different project that aims to collect and digitize personally significant objects and stories of people residing in the German Heritage Corridor. And that is this right up here. This is our GIS part of the project. It follows the Missouri River from St. Louis and goes about most of the way across the state. And so it has some small towns in it, like Hearne, that still have a very largely German population that survived the post-war language and cultural purging of Germanic culture. So the project has a budget that was approved by the legislature, which is really why I ended up working on this. And at this point, the Humanities Council has brought together a large group of German studies scholars, art historians, musicologists, linguists, and architecture. I mean, it's like got probably 20 people in the on the project group. And at our last meeting, we were working with a tourism consultant. So we're still getting our bearings regarding the purposes of the project. But anyway, there are a lot of really similar projects to this going on, and I've learned about some here, like the place-based ideas in the Emmett Till Remembrance Project, which was amazing, the Edmonton Public Library's storytelling project, and one that was on NPR recently, which was about the favelas in Buenos Aires. So anyway, this is a very popular era right now. So those are similar in the organizational sense of this project, I think, just different in content, obviously. So my role on this project team is assembling a digital publication using Scalar. And these are a few of the screenshots. So the GPS component, like I said, we're using Google Maps for that. It's got a plugin. Recorded stories, so it has, it's multimedia, so it's got the oral history component, and it's all transcribed, and it's got lots of photographs and things like that. And the cool thing is that Scalar has this visualization that it will do eventually once we get a lot more photographs and input. So one of the most exciting parts of the project is when we invite the public to participate. So we're planning on hosting public events where they, similar to the Everyday Archives Project. So we have plans to work with public libraries and historic societies to collect the stories where people can bring in their family objects and tell the stories about their ancestors. And we hope to reveal things like immigration patterns, language patterns, so that we can see where people arrived or came from in Germany. Anyway, I hope to be able to use this platform eventually and this idea to be able to come back to my original idea one day, encompassing a much wider array of immigrants.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. I'm not sure if this one's on. Maybe that one is, but okay. Hi, so thanks, Jenny, very much. I just wanted to talk a little bit about, as you can see here, this is a new course. It's an Intro to Material Culture Studies course, although it's not called that. It's called Get Real, Go Places. So with that, let me tell you a little bit about how this course came to be. In 2014, a handful of librarians, gallery curators, and museum professionals, as well as educators from several different departments, including classics and archaeology and art history, started meeting to share tips about how we currently teach with objects on our campus. So there was a sense that we are already doing lots of interesting work with objects, and we're incorporating material culture into different disciplines already. But there was a desire to kind of share tips. How can we do this better? How can we make use of all of our collections instead of just the star objects? So there was also several efforts around this time and that have continued and that started before the started meeting, including such things as we have a celebration of teaching, and there's individuals had been presenting on different object study, as well as efforts like Gallery Crawl and an International Archaeology Day. Both of those latter two events are things where we do involve members of the university community, as well as members of the Columbia local community, to get to know the collections and to get to know the processes behind making those accessible. And especially these events have really helped to form the group together and to help gel as locations change and as institutions have moved on and off campus. So the group continued meeting. They did want to, again, become more involved in course teaching specifically. So some of the events I described led to some early discussions about possibly creating a course. And I'm happy to say that that course is being offered right now for the first time this semester. It found a home through the Honors College, and so this course, I'm offering it this semester as an 8-week honors tutorial, which we've structured slightly differently than other courses in that we do meet for 2 hours each week rather than just one. And I'll say that's for logistical and for practical reasons. We find that just getting to a place sometimes can take 15 minutes. And some of our museums are actually off campus, so it's helpful for us to build in time we have, as I'll say in a minute, based on the size of the course, we do have to get students to the place. And for that, we've been able to use university transportation. So all of these things takes a little bit more of time. So we find that the 2-hour course meetings are much more amenable to getting to not only see different objects, but also get to ask questions. So the 2 hours have been very good. And so the course has been ongoing. It'll end next month. Sad tears. But let me just say that our synergetic goals as a material culture studies group, myself as well as the museum professionals that I mentioned, have been to introduce students to the practice of object study, introduce some of the techniques of object biography, and most importantly, we feel to raise awareness of the collections on our campus. Most of our students are freshmen. And that's something that we recognize they might return to these collections later, possibly for senior honors theses or senior projects of any kind. And we find that students, just by knowing about the collections, that we have a textile collection and we have a botanic garden. Our whole campus is considered a botanic garden. So getting to know some of the resources available on campus is very valuable as a freshman so that you can return to those later. We talk about how to analyze and interact with historic and archival objects, and we also take a very inclusive view. So we began our course with looking at textiles and wardrobe. We look at Civil War scrapbooks. We look at contemporary frisbees. Our school has a very interesting history. I mentioned the Botanic Garden. Our whole campus has a lot of really interesting horticulture and natural history type collections. So to summarize, I really feel that the course has given students a greater awareness of collections on our campus, and it'll lead to some really interesting presentations that will take a creative form. So I'm encouraging written as well as 3D displays. Thank you. And now let me introduce Rose Marra.
Thank you, Sarah. As often happens when you come to a conference, you learn things that your colleagues are doing that you didn't know, even though they were right down the hall. So I'm really enjoying hearing about some of these initiatives that I'd heard a little bit about before. I'm a professor in the School of Information Science and Learning Technologies. I have a background in computer science, but I've been doing learning design, technology-focused learning design for many years now. And I'll just mention that I'm a KU grad. So I'm glad to be back home. I'd like to take a couple of minutes to talk to you about a new game that a new course that we're offering in our department here in Learning Technologies. We're calling it Designing Games for Learning, but our fun name is Why So Serious Games Academy, and that's the graphic you're seeing up here. The course is designed to use hands-on projects for the learners to immerse them into the design of both analog and digital games. There is a focus on designing these games for learning purposes, but we take a very broad approach to learning. So, it might be cultural awareness kind of learning or strategic kind of learning, not necessarily about learning mathematics, although there are those types of games as well. So we're hoping to support them in figuring out the kinds of elements that need to be in these games to support these different kinds of learnings. As you can see, we call it the Why So Serious Game Academy, and we talk about the learners as being trainees, and I'm their gaming guide as the instructor for the course. The visual to the right shows how we've designed a leveled approach to the course. And the various titles you see there, play, analyze, commune, adapt, design, and create, get at the different main elements of the course that we emphasize. So you can't be a good game designer or even a not so good game designer unless you do some game playing. And a big part of the course is to adopt, if you will, a mentor game, games that we've vetted and allow them to choose from. They play the game, they analyze it, they do mods on that game, they write a lesson plan to work it into a pedagogical activity in a particular learning setting. And then they go on to work in gaming communities, forums, find out what the people who are playing are saying, then to begin to adapt, design, and create. The emphasis in the course is not on the programming aspects of game creation, the emphasis on design. So we do a lot of storyboarding, paper prototyping, and playing of each other's prototypes to provide feedback to one another. One of the things I've really enjoyed about this course is that because it does not require programming experience, and also because we're offering in a completely online format so students from anywhere can get to it, we've really kind of created an open borders kind of course that really takes down some of the barriers that might exist to a learner who's interested in game design. So that's a really nice aspect of it. But to summarize, I think one of the things that's most energizing to me, especially 20 years into my career as a professor, is the inherent interdisciplinary nature of creating games. I come at it both from a programmer from way back, but a learning and a technology web environment designer. But you can't do this well without having good narrative, without good mechanics, good animation, technology infrastructure. And that's one of the nice things about this panel and the collaborations that are developing between learning technologies and information science, digital storytelling, and computer science at Mizzou, is we're trying to leverage all of those things together to pull together a strong set of experiences for our students. And we're hoping in the near future to be able to offer an undergraduate minor in gaming with that in mind. Thank you. Back to Twyla Gibson, who did not introduce herself before, but she's a wonderful assistant professor in the School of Information Science and Learning Technologies.
Thank you. I didn't realize
Next
I
slide.
didn't introduce myself. Well, my own research focuses on the creation of new tools and the development of new techniques to analyze early texts and manuscripts. And the slides show the interface of the Greek key virtual research environment and a conceptualization of the work we're doing. I'm also the head of the Digital Humanities Commons at the Allen Institute. And early on, we concentrated on promoting the digital work of colleagues at University of Missouri. But since then, we've moved more into a role of connecting scholars and faculty who are producing digital work with the infrastructure that's available at the university, and this has become a critical aspect of what we do. So in the interest of time, I'd like to just remind you of our panels and turn it over to the question period. So this is Joanna, Katina, Nick, Jenny, Sarah, and Rose.
And Twyla.
Did we do it? How are we on time?
Oh, we're all right.
Yes.
Great, thank you all. Great, diverse and great opportunities there. We have about 10 minutes for questions, so if anyone has questions for any of the panelists.
How essential was there a certain academic dean, or was how essential has administration been in kind of collaboration as you described? Or maybe you just briefly 1 or 2 points about how you got the momentum to
Well,
create.
Joanna and Twyla, you might want to talk about how you all met, and that's kind of how things started, right?
You know, the digital storytelling program,
Yes.
as a program, didn't start with me. It started with our current interim dean of the College of Arts and Science was one of the core faculty members who was sort of the generation before me in terms of coming up with this. And she said it was the most grassroots initiative she'd ever seen on campus in her 30 years on campus. I mean, it was really the genesis of what is now the undergraduate BA degree program was chairs and leaders from different colleges and different departments within the College of Arts and Science coming together and saying, we see students coming through our traditional disciplinary majors who are not quite getting what they need, you know, and like we see ourselves doing what we do really well, and we see a certain kind of student. So in English, it was the students coming through who were doing creative writing emphasis, but they didn't want to do poetry, short stories, or novels. They wanted to do something else, and it was digital, and we didn't offer it. In journalism, right, we saw students coming through our amazing journalism school who were very digital native, very savvy students with digital materials, but they didn't want to do just news. They wanted to do something else. And I don't want to say just news. They didn't want to do news, right? This is a news folks program, but they wanted to do something that didn't qualify, really didn't count as news. And they, you know, so they were a good fit. How are we going to retain those students? How, how do we sort of give them what they need in communication? So across these different departments, even in like the College of Human and Environmental Sciences and geography, so we were really trying to put something together for these students who were sort of visionary students, and they didn't fit in the traditional disciplines that have organized our campuses. And so we were trying, like, what can we do to make a sort of digital arts and sciences, an interdisciplinary program where they have the flexibility to do what they need and the support to do what they need and a structure to do what they need. And how do we take the students who are visionary, but they don't know what their vision is yet, right? And right, so because sometimes students come through and it's like, this is a good fit, I don't know exactly what I want to do, and give them the structure so that the students who know what they want and the students who don't know what they want, all the students who don't quite fit in those structures, have what they need to do with digital storytelling. And so that's how we sort of came, and it was just meeting after meeting, and every time we met, so we had to go talk to someone else. And we talked to community colleges, we talked to businesses, we talked to everyone on campus. And so it was deans, it was assistant professors, so that was the kind of process it was. It was truly, truly grassroots, and many years in the making because of that. There were just so many conversations.
I would say that the Digital Humanities Commons
Right.
was also a grassroots
Yes.
concern, and that a number of faculty from different humanities disciplines were meeting. We decided to create the certificate, and we just moved into a space that was available in information science. And then we were supported by the Mizzou Advantage, which is a group at the University of Missouri that has identified 4 major areas of priority, one of them being media of the future, and they supported the development of the Commons and the certificate.
And then the Commons was actually the way that Twyla and Joanna met, I believe.
Yeah, so then
Yeah.
through
Commons,
conversations with
yeah.
faculty, Joanna and I connected, and the digital storytelling is a BA, and the digital humanities is more is a graduate program. And so we wanted to see how our graduate students could help with their teaching and learning and projects, and how the undergraduates would have a place to move forward after they finished their BA. And so since then, we've been putting our heads together and coming up with more and more ideas. And we hope that you guys will stay in touch with us and collaborate and continue this conversation.
I don't think it's always that easy to do interdisciplinary work, though. You know, you ask that, and we complain all the time about how hard it is to cross those disciplinary boundaries.
The reward structures at the university don't match up very well
Yeah.
with interdisciplinary work, at least at MU, and I don't know how it is at KU or at other places, but they're struggling with that. The provosts and folks talk a lot about wanting interdisciplinarity. In fact, a lot of the strategic initiatives that Twyla mentioned are interdisciplinary, but still the structures aren't there to support it very well.
It obviously takes a lot of years-long work to get these collaborations going and make them successful.
I'm very curious to hear about where the students are coming from for the bachelor's in digital storytelling. Like, what brings them to this program, and then where are they going afterwards? Where would they work or continue their studies?
Yeah, I would say, so a few of our students, like Joanna was mentioning before, some of them are transferring from other programs, such as the journalism program or communication program, so other established programs. Since we've only been around for 2 years, right? So we just had our first 6 graduates this past semester, and so we've been trying to, keep in touch with them. And so I would say that is a lot of our students who are, like what Joanna was saying, who are interested in learning these production skills, but not necessarily wanting to be just technical producers, actually wanting to add that conceptual and creative component to their video productions. I think that's kind of where the space for them. And also we function a lot in that sort of short form media and not necessarily long form media, which is a lot of students can use for like marketing purposes. And so a lot of our students have worked even for like Mizzou baseball, so like sports marketing, making all the videos for them. We have one student right now who is interning with a screenwriter. We have one that's working with Vice Australia. So a lot of those sort of more innovative platforms, but also we have some who, like I was saying, do like VR and even innovations within technologies as well. So I think it's pretty like, because we are so broad, then the end result of where our students end up is also very broad. We also have students who even go into even writing graduate programs. So just really that integrate digital components, right? And so it's kind of broad, but hopefully we'll have more data on the results after we have more than the 6 graduates. I think we have quite a large graduating class actually this next coming year. So
we did, in order to propose the program, of course, have to show that we were in fact thinking about where our students would work after they graduated. So I was the person who put together a lot of the statistics from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and in fact a lot of research on the Kansas City metro area. So the Mid-America Council has statistics on specifically jobs in digital storytelling, so I mean, and these are years old statistics, but they're burned in my mind because I had to write them out and talk about them. It was something like 34,000 jobs in the metro, Kansas City metro area, and we tracked growth trajectories, and those were small companies, like not Hallmark, but there's a lot of small kind of media and social media startups, around the region, and so we didn't even look nationally as carefully as we looked regionally. That we needed to demonstrate that. So, I'm not a statistics person, so I was like, okay, these are the numbers, but what's been borne out as we see our students starting to be advanced in their programs and graduate, just these few students, is that we're getting a lot of requests for interns all over the place. So the internship opportunities, like now we are barely keeping up with requests for interns, and so there's clearly a need for what they do. But I also want to emphasize that we're not trying to graduate one kind of student, right? We are graduating students who do different kinds of things. So it's the diversity of the program in terms of the way we allow students to focus in different areas and to sort of graze and really do this kind of liberal arts education and the digital arts and sciences comes to bear, and that some students will probably go into some kind of like translational research work, and some students will go into marketing, and some students will go into a kind of grassroots social change kind of activism, and they do very, very different kinds of things. Some of them are really writers, and some of them are really, they want to work with cameras, and so some of them really are doing animation or drawings, and so we really allow them to have a very distinct identity. We're not when you look at a digital storytelling student, you may not know exactly what their skill set is until you interview them.
And that's why I was saying, like, for our introductory course, that's why we allow them to have a little taste of everything in that course, and then as they move through the program, then they can pick and choose their courses based on those interests. But we want them to be exposed to everything at that introductory level.
I'm just curious what roles your university library
Huge.
collaborations there.
Well, our library is intimately connected with the digital humanities initiatives at University of Missouri. We have librarians on our advisory council, and we work with librarians and I'm the chair of the cyber infrastructure group at University of Missouri, and we have a number of librarians on that committee working to create humanities infrastructure. So the university is very good at creating infrastructure to do DNA research in sciences, but not really geared up, or we're in the process of gearing up for digital humanities. And so the digital humanities efforts in our libraries, we have the Miller-Nichols Library in Kansas City, we have Ellis Library, we have another branch in St. Louis, and a number of smaller branches. The idea is that the Digital Commons in our department is the research hub. There's going to be a new digital media center in the library, and we hope that in each of our libraries there'll be a kind of specialist in digital media research and the tools and equipment to help faculty, staff, and student engage in this kind of work. So on that note, thank you very much for attending our panel, and we hope to carry on the conversation. We've already made preliminary arrangements with Brian, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.